Hi, I'm so glad you're here. This is Jennifer, and today I have 3 cards for you, all featuring a shaped card front. The cool thing about this technique is you can do this with any die cuts that you have that you can cluster together to form a card front. You can see how this card stands on display. It's something really unique and different, and a great way to stretch your supplies. I will also be sharing tips for using layering stencils alone, or with stamping, or with hot foiling. So we got lots to share here. I think it's best to look at a completed card first in action so you can see what it looks like and how it stands up. So here is one of the completed cards. You can see the flap opens to reveal a personal message inside, and it stands up nicely on display. We will start by creating a bunch of floral die cuts for all 3 cards. I'm using a new collection from Syberia called Gorgeous Peonies. I love this set. There is this stamp set that has one large stamp that you stamp all at once. Then there is also a coordinating die that cuts all of those out at once. There is a coordinating hot foil plate that foils those flowers instead. And there's layering stencils that colors in all of the flowers at once. So here's the thing, you can use the stencils by themselves, the stencils with the stamp, the stencils with the hot foil plate, and then you have the coordinating die that'll cut everything out. Now, these are all sold separately, so you can pick and choose what you like. And I'm going to show you all 3 ways today, with the stamping, with the stencils alone, and with the hot foil plates. Let's start with the stamping. I have that large stamp image in my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm using my anti-static powder tool, and I have heavyweight white cardstock. I'm stamping this large image with Altenew Obsidian Black Pigment Ink. I really like how dark black this is and how crisp it stamps. Now notice the fine line of the stamp. I don't know that I've ever used a stamp with such fine lines, at least in a clear stamp, and it is gorgeous. I will stamp this twice so we have twice the amount of flowers and leaves to create our card. Now this is optional, but I decided to add clear embossing powder and heat set it so that we have a little raised shine to our images. You could instead just let the ink dry on its own or heat set the ink alone. Now to add color to this, you could definitely watercolor, color with markers, colored pencils, whatever you prefer, but there are layering stencils available that do an amazing job giving a realistic coloring to it. And I'll be using these stencils on all 3 of my cards today. For this first example, we're coloring in those stamp lines with the stencils. Now you've seen me in my videos use different tools to hold my paper and stencils in place as I ink over them. Today I'm sharing something else that works really well. There's a lot of great options, just showing you yet another. This is the Altenew Sticky Matte Grid that actually comes with the Altenew Stamp Wheel, which is a stamp platform. I'll link to a video where I use it up here on the top right. But you can also get the Sticky Matte sold separately. On one side is a raised grid, and on the other side it's smooth. I have the grid facing down, stuck to my desk, and then the smooth side is facing up towards the camera. This sticky mat is made of a photopolymer material, the same thing our clear stamps are made of. So it has a natural stick to it and it cleans nicely. What I like to do is stick my cardstock to it, it'll hold it there, and then press the stencil on top. And you'll notice that the sticky surface grabs a hold of the stencil. You can actually see it's kind of suctioned on there in the camera. Now let's get started with inking over these stencils, and I'll talk more about the sticky mat in a moment. Over the first stencil, I'm applying a light color of dye ink. I will put the colors and the brand of the inks that I'm using on the screen. I'm using a mix of inks. I really just went for the particular color I wanted for each flower. So this is the first stencil, which has the most solid opening, so I'm using the lightest color first. I'm using a large Altenew blending brush. These are my favorite brushes to use when I want to cover a large area quickly. And in this case, I'm doing one color over the entire stencil each time, so the large brush is fast and easy to use. Okay, I'm done with that first stencil. Now it's time to line up the second stencil. These are very easy to line up. The stencils do have little registration marks in the corner, those little squares, but I found I didn't need to use them. Now I'm moving on to the second stencil, so I'm using a slightly darker ink color. This is Bubblegum from Pinkfresh Studio, and I'll apply this ink. Now you can get creative, putting darker amount of ink towards the center, but I am just doing basic stenciling here, and you'll see it gives beautiful results. Then we'll move on to the third and final layer of the flowers with my darkest pink ink yet. So you can see how the stencil is kind of stuck over there on the left and the right to that sticky matte surface. Again, that sticky matte is the same material that our stamps are made of. So you're familiar with the kind of stick that it offers. I find that the ink cleans off of it just like it would clean off of a regular stamp. And I like that there's those grids on the other side of it so that you can kind of see if you want to line something up. Now, I've shown many ways to hold your stencils in place as you do inking. There are a lot that work. Sticky mats, you can use a magnetic board. I've shown many options because I think it's good to see all the options there are, and you can consider which one might be the best for you. But I will say using this sticky mat is definitely the best hold that I've gotten of any option. And it'll hold up nicely over time. You can easily clean the sticky mat with a gentle soap and water. Now, again, this comes in a stamp wheel, and that's how I had been doing my stenciling in the past. I thought it'd be good to get a separate sticky mat to use just for stenciling, and so that's what I'm using here today. Works well. I've been doing it off screen in my stamp wheel for some time, and I'm really pleased with it. So you will see me do stenciling this way many times in future videos, but again, do whatever method works for you. Even tape is a great way to hold a stencil in place. So after using all the stencils, we have this beautiful result in our stamped image. Now I can use the coordinating die, which really lines up very well, and I will be able to cut out all my flowers and leaves very quickly, and it leaves just a fine little white line around the outside edge. It looks beautiful. Now I need to do another set of inked flowers and leaves using that outline stamped image. But first I want to clean my stencils. Just a reminder, the best way to clean your stencils when you have ink on them is to do one spray of rubbing alcohol and then wipe it with a dry cloth. It'll dry super fast, it'll clean up most of your ink, and you'll be good to go for your next card. I did the same process for inking these flowers and leaves as I did last time. I'm just going to skip some of it, but I'm putting the colors of inks I used at the top. So we'll have two different colors of flowers and we'll have two different colors of leaves. We'll cut these out and then we can use all the pink and yellow and green leaves together on one card. So I'll set these die cuts aside, and now let's create some die cuts where I use the hot foil plate for the outline instead of this stamp. I just think it's fun to show both so you can see what both look like. There are a lot of product lines out there that have different options, so I think the more you see it, the more you know what you'll be drawn to. I have my Spellbinders Glimmer machine. Any foil machine would work for this. It is warmed up and ready to go. I have the gorgeous Peonies hot foil plate, and I'm creating a little hinge at the top with a piece of tape on some smooth white cardstock. I'll slide a piece of gold foil between the foil plate and the cardstock so that the pretty side of the foil touches the pretty side of the foil plate. And I'll cut the excess off here. I can save that for a sentiment hot foil later on. I will pick this all up and put the plate side down onto the hot Glimmer machine. So I'll flip this all over. Then I put the two shims that come with the Glimmer machine on top, and I'll press the timer button. When the timer button stops flashing, I will take all of those plates out and run it through my die cut machine, which is the Spellbinders Platinum 6. So the Glimmer machine provides the heat, the die cut machine provides the pressure, and together that'll give a beautiful foiled image. If you have a different die cut machine, there are other foil machines out there. You just need to follow the manufacturer's instructions. All right, so we'll just take this off and look at that beautiful foil result. So last time we used the layering stencils with the stamp outline. This time we're using it with a foil outline, and they're used the same way. So I'm not going to show the whole inking process again. I'm doing the same thing as before. I have my Altenew sticky matte grid, just laying the stencils over it and doing 3 shades of ink, a light, medium, and dark for the flowers, and 3 shades of green for the leaves, a light, medium, and dark. And by the way, you can stencil over the foil outline. The ink will just kind of come right off of the foiling and you'll still have that shiny outline. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'll continue to do the leaves and another set of flowers with the foiled images. All right, now let's get our third set of flowers ready for our third card. And for this option, I'm not doing any outline. I'm using the layering stencils without the stamp and without the foil. So the only thing that will form these flowers is the stencil inking itself. So I'm just starting with a piece of white cardstock with nothing on it, putting it onto my Altenew sticky grid mat, then placing the first stencil on top and inking with my lightest color. This will allow me to form the outside edges of my flowers. Now I can take the second stencil and easily line it up with the inking that I've already done and use a slightly darker color. So this particular layering stencil set doesn't need the outline to form these beautiful images. And there are a lot of collections out there like this. I encourage you to look at the websites because a lot of times companies will offer outline images, but you don't need them. You can use the layering stencils on their own. I just recommend checking the website for examples. But in this case, it looks beautiful without the outline. So I continued to ink this set of flowers and leaves, and then I did a second set without the outline with yellows and greens so that I have two sets of flowers and leaves for this card too. And again, I'll use the coordinating dies on all of these. So now we have three sets of flowers and leaves. On the left there, we have the ones that we did with just the layering stencils and no outline. In the middle, we have the flowers we did with the black stamped outline. And on the right, we have the flowers we did with the gold foil outline. So now let's turn these cards into these fun shaped card fronts. This is something that you can do with any die cuts that you can cluster together, but it works really well with florals. So off screen, I assembled some flowers and leaves on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. They're just laying there. Nothing is glued in place. I just wanted to kind of get a plan. Now I'm looking for a die that I could hide behind all of those die cuts. And I'm considering these Spellbinders stylish ovals. I used this in my last video. I love this set. I warned you I'd use it a lot. And I chose one that could hide behind those flowers. And this is the size that I felt worked best. However, I'm going to do partial die cutting so that I can take that shaped oval die and turn it into a mini card front. Just stick with me. I promise it'll make sense in a moment. I'm doing some partial die cutting. To do partial die cutting, I'm taking my top cutting plate and only having it cover half of this die. So anything under the cutting plate to the left will cut. Anything hanging out of the cutting plate on the right will not cut. So this will only partially cut. Now I will take some scissors and I will cut to make the sides of this straight. So only one end of this will have that rounded oval look. The other will have that flat end. This will form a little mini card front. We need to do a score line at the top of this so that we will have a hinge to turn this into a card. So I want it to kind of hang about that far down on my card. So I'm going to score about an inch from that straight edge there. I will then fold along this score line and reinforce it with my bone folder. So now we have the little flap on there, and that will actually adhere to the back of our card once we're ready to glue everything together. Now on the front of this little flap, or this little mini card front that we've created with that oval bottom, we're going to assemble all of our flowers. So I'm covering the entire front of that with some tape runner. Any kind of adhesive would work here. Tape runner is really helpful because you can kind of move things as you go. The flap of this little mini card front is folded back and taped down. So now onto this shape here, I can arrange all of my flowers. I did take a picture of that arrangement so that I could follow that picture as I glue these down. And you'll see I just pick up and move things around so that they are on that sticky flap on the front. At this point, I decided I wanted to go ahead and put this onto the back of my card so I know how far down to go. So I'm just going to hook that flap over the top of our white panel there, which again is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And so I know how far down to put these flowers. As I put the flowers onto that adhesive on that front flap of our card, I'm making sure none of the white shows through. I want all of these flowers to overlap enough that no white is showing. So we have this really solid bouquet that starts out big at the top and kind of gets narrowed towards the bottom. I will make sure that my last die cut along the bottom lines up with the bottom edge of that white cardstock. So this little flower here, you'll notice I'll glue it onto that flap so that it lines up right there along the bottom of our card. That makes sure that this will stand up nicely on display. I'll continue to add more die cuts. I'll even put one more leaf that will line up there right along the bottom of the card. Just filling this out and making the front of our card nice and full, and the bottom of that card front will line up again right along the bottom there. Now, once I'm happy with where everything is, I will add more adhesive behind these just to make sure everything is secure. Some of them are in there with just a little adhesive. This will make it secure. I am using some foamed squares behind some of the petals and leaves just to give some dimension. And then in other places, I'll use my Gina K Connect liquid adhesive in the fine tip bottle to squeeze a little bit of glue between die cuts. So you want to make sure everything is secure, but these pieces are only glued to that flap that we created. Now I can flip this over, cut any excess that's sticking off from the top, and there we have our card front. But I don't have it adhered just yet. I had it temporarily adhered, wasn't sure how I wanted to do it, and I'm glad I did because I changed my mind. Instead of using plain white cardstock on the inside of this card, I decided to give it some texture with a hot foil plate. I have this Syberia glowing geometry hot foil plate. It's beautiful. I'll foil with it later, but I wanted to show you that you can make an impression with a hot foil plate without using foiling. You just need to set up your die cut machine as you would making an impression with the die. It involves a flexible rubber mat that most machines come with. I'm just following the instructions that the Spellbinders Platinum offers for making an impression with the die. However, I'm making an impression with the hot foil plate. So you put the cardstock on that flexible mat, then you put the hot foil plate on it, run it through your machine, and look at that beautiful impression. It looks like an embossing folder, but really I'm getting another use out of my hot foil plate. So I'll use this on the inside of our card. And now we can glue everything together. I'll put some strong adhesive on the back side of this flap. I will lay the bouquet right up against that white embossed piece that we did with the hot foil plate. And then I will press that flap down on the back, making sure to hold it there till it's dry. That little flap is what holds our card together, so you want to make sure that it's secure. All right, now we want the back side to still look pretty. So I have another piece of plain white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I will glue that to the back of our card. So the flap will be sandwiched between it. And now we have a nice place to put our hand stamped by Jennifer message on the back. Now we need a place to write our personal message on the inside behind that bouquet of flowers. So I used the same stylish oval die as before, just cut it from white cardstock, and I'm putting glue on the back of it. Now I'm lining that up with the end of the oval flap that we created, so the adhesive is faced up towards the camera. I'll close my card upside down on it, which will grab that adhesive, and now I know that that oval is hidden behind our bouquet of flowers when it's closed. Now, before we finish off this card, let's go ahead and get the other two to the same point. I'm going to follow the same card design. Now that I've done one, it'll be easy to do. However, I did change the inside, the white part on each. For this one, I'm using the Syberia Tiny Crosses background die. This cuts a panel that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I thought this would be pretty as a white on white on the inside of this card. So I've already created the front card flap just like we did before, and I'll go ahead and glue the flap onto that white rectangle die cut because I know how to do this card now, right? I have come up with one card over there on the right. I'm just repeating it with a different card inside and some different flowers, but I'm doing pretty much the same design. Now the front of that card flap there with the oval bottom is covered with tape runner, so now I can just start adding all my flowers and leaves, following my example over on the right, which will save me a lot of time and effort. Once I've covered it with all those flowers and leaves and made sure that a couple of the leaves and flowers reach the bottom of the card down there, I will add that extra adhesive behind some of the die cuts, some extra liquid adhesive and foam squares to make sure everything is secured to that front card flap. Then we can cut off anything sticking off the top of it and then add all of that onto a white cardstock panel. Because right now you can see through the inside of the card, which, by the way, I guess I could have left it that way. No reason to not see through it. But I did add that white backing to it, which does give the card a little more strength. It hides that flap that we have folded over the back, and it gives me a place to do my hand stamped by Jennifer image. All right, now we just need to add an oval to the inside. This is where we'll write our personal message, and it'll be hidden when the card front is closed. And now for our third and final card. This one has the foiled flowers on the front, so I thought I'd use a foiled background on the inside. But I didn't want to do more gold foil. I felt like that was too much, so I'm using an opal foil, which is very subtle. I have that same hot foil plate that I used before to make an impression, but this time we're foiling. I have opal hot foil, which is beautiful. It just gives an iridescent shine onto whatever color cardstock you use. Here I'm using white, so it'll be very subtle. Doing the same hot foil process that I did before. And it's going to be really hard to see this image on camera. I apologize. It just gives an opal pattern to the cardstock. If I used colored cardstock, you'd see it more, but I wanted this to be subtle, so it's the opal on white. Now I took it out to outside of my craft room to see if you could see the shine a bit better in the sunlight, and you can see it a bit more there. I wish you could see how beautiful opal shine this is. It's just gorgeous. And I'll use that on the inside of this particular card. Now I'm going to skip assembling it because it's just like the other two, but I use that foil piece on the inside. Now let's create our sentiments for all three cards. I'm using the new Syberia For Her sentiment stamp set, hot foil plates, and coordinating dies. These are sold separately but can be used together. I will be using this set a lot because I love the style of it. I like the words hugs, hello, and sending love. So you can either stamp those words and use the coordinating die to cut them out, or foil those words and use the coordinating dies to cut them out. So lots of options here, and I'll do both. Let's start out with some foiling. One of the things that I like about foiled sentiments is it's a great opportunity to use those leftover scraps of foil. In fact, I don't have many scraps left because I use them a lot for sentiments, but if you have little pieces left over from any foiling that you've done, you can use them with sentiments. So here I'm putting the pretty side of the foil against the pretty side of the hot foil plate and using a piece of tape to hold it in place on a piece of smooth white cardstock, and we'll go through the foiling process as we did before. I'll flip this sandwich all over and put it onto the warm gray area of my Glimmer machine. Put the plates on top and press the timer button. When the timer stops flashing, I'll take all those plates out and run it through my die cut machine. Once I have a foiled sentiment, I can use the coordinating die to cut it out. I'll use this hello on my card that has the flowers with no outline. I will do a foiled sending love on the middle card there that has the foiled flowers. And over on the left, you can't see it there, but I did stamp with black ink the hugs and use the coordinating die to cut that out. I did change my mind and I thought a pop of color would be fun on the inside. So I used the same oval die and cut from scraps of cardstock that matched the ink that I used on the front of my card. I stamped a sentiment on those ovals from that For Her sentiment set from Syberia. And I'm gluing that right on top of the white oval that I already glued on the inside earlier. I just thought the pop of color was more fun than the white on the inside. So now I have all three cards of the same design, but I changed up how I did my flowers and I changed up the white panel on the inside. So let's take a closer look at each. This is the one with the black stamping for the outline of the flowers. You can see the fine outline that I got with that stamp set. I really like that. You can also see the impression that I made with the hot foil plate on that white cardstock panel on the inside. For some shine on there, I added some Trinity Stamps Gold Rush confetti sequins. I really like those because they sparkle so much in the light. And this stands up very nicely on display because those die cuts reach the bottom of our card. Now here is the example where I didn't do any outline. I used the stencils alone to create the flowers and then use the coordinating die to cut them out. On the inside, I used that Tiny Crosses background die. I have a foiled sentiment, so I use those same Gold Rush sequins to scatter a little bling here and there, and it matches really nicely with that foil. And you can see how it kind of twinkles in the light. And of course, it stands up nicely on display. I think it's fun to make a card front like this as opposed to just a rectangle card front. Makes it extra special. Then the final one, which I think is the most fun because look at all that sparkle. You have the sparkle of the foiling that we did for the outline of the flowers, the sparkle of the foil on the sentiment that says sending love, and you have the sparkle of the confettis I added and the subtle opal shine on the inside from that opal hot foil plate. I hope it was helpful to see all three of these examples on different ways to use different products from a collection together, stamps, hot foil plates, and stencils, so you can kind of decide what look you're drawn to and what to consider in the future. I will link below to the products I used here, and at the end here I'll link to a couple other related videos, including another video with unique card front shapes. It's just a great way to change up how you make a card. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon with another video.